The date is July 27th, 1989. The role-playing game, Mother, essentially Dragon Quest in a more goofy modern-day fantasy setting, had just been released on the Famicom. It wasn't considered the most successful game due to comparisons to
売れなかったですねって言われてたのもいつも。
あ、そうですか。あれですよね、周りがでかすぎただけですよね。その比較のドラゴンクエストとか。
そう。
Dragon Quest itself? Sorry to break the mood, but that's like basically taking your 6-year-old kid who's never been outside to soccer practice. And the coach gets upset when he doesn't do well against Danny Big Bucks, who's 24 years old and has been accepted into the elite league of soccer gamers. Anyway, while this game likely seemed simple at the time, it would not only lay the seeds for a series that would inspire numerous creators, but also mark itself as the first turn-based RPG Nintendo sorta made. This isn't development history though. We're here to talk about localization. Typically, I see localization put in a sort of negative light. In my experience, at least. People will look at one minor thing being censored and will instantly cry out about the injustice being done to their favorite game that they probably weren't going to buy anyway. Sometimes it even overshadows the actual game. However, it's important to remember that localization is a two-way street, and Mother is actually a great example of the good that comes from it. The project of localizing Mother was handed off to Phil Sandtop, and multiple changes were made to the game. I assume the team saw what was very admittedly flawed about the game and made multiple changes. A run button, the removal of the map as an item and putting it on the start button, flavor text for enemies if you check them, repel rings that drastically lowered the encounter rate, an ending cutscene, and so much more. Of course, there was some censorship as well, like making images of blood or cigarettes be taken out. But some surprising stuff actually stayed in, like this dialogue about strip clubs or the underage drinking gag. But it's also important to note other basic localization changes, like dialogue changing a joke about the currently unreleased Dragon Quest IV to Super Mario 7. God, that one did not age well at all. According to Sandhop himself in an interview with Lost Levels, the project actually helped Nintendo of Japan work a bit harder to make things more appropriate for other subsidiaries of Nintendo outside of Japan. All very, very interesting stuff that I could probably go on about for 2 hours, but that's not what this video is about. However, there was one big elephant in the room over all of this localization work. I'm sure it was an easy thing for the team to think about, but for petty people like me, it's a big deal. That is, the title of the game, Mother. As far as I can tell with my white, uncultured eyes, this seems to be something all over Japan, putting together some hot English words to make something seem more appealing. Honestly, just hop onto Crunchyroll and you'll probably see like 50 million animes with this title, just like that. However, unlike Final Fantasy or Castlevania, I guess Mother was seen as a bit too hard to market. So instead, they took the sci-fi elements of the game, like giant robots and aliens, and came up with this sci-fi sounding name, Earthbound. Earth Spacebound. There's a space, don't forget the space. However, as I'm sure probably every single person watching knows, we never even got Mother 1 officially localized until the Wii U re-release in 2015. So this name was saved on a .txt file to use for when they eventually decided to localize Mother 2. However, in an unfortunate computer glitch, the file actually ended up being corrupted. It was mostly fine though, it's just that the space was gone and now the game was known as Earthbound. One word, don't forget there's no space. I know that was quite long as to get into why I don't like the name of a video game that's over 30 years old, but gosh darn, I want to vent every single detail into this void of an internet. Personally, I finished Mother 1 after being in the fanbase for like 5 years in late 2018. I had started playing it beforehand, and I had seen a Let's Play before, but as a professional sheep, I just went along with not finishing it because Mr. YouTube Man said it was bad. While it had always been one of my favorite franchises, this is where I grew an even stronger appreciation of the series. As far as titles go, before this, I did what most fans seem to do in my experience. I referred to Earthbound Beginnings as Mother 1, and Mother 3 as Mother 3, while still calling Earthbound. This seems to be the basic procedure because, well, when I and many others were kids, there was no Earthbound Beginnings. We had a leaked ROM called Earthbound 0, but it was just Mother 1 to us. Though, you would find it still can find some people whom call it Earthbound 0. Honestly, I can't blame them. Sounds way better than Beginnings, at least. Anyway, back on topic. It was around this time, though, when I fell into a trap. Yes, I had become an elitist. I started calling Earthbound Mother too, and went on to every mention of the name Earthbound and responded with the legendary asterisk mother comment, or other variations while censoring the name Earthbound. Truly, if I saw you get more than over 10 likes so you would show up on my timeline, and you dared say the name Earthbound, you were on my chopping block. While some of my followers on Twitter thought this was funny, including me, most people found it very annoying. Eventually, however, similar to many great heroes, I took the ultimate sacrifice and only kept it harassing my friends and followers. Now this may just seem normal. If you know me, I'm typically just obnoxious on Twitter, but believe it or not, there was actually a method to my madness for this. Or, there's at least one in my head. Names are something very much overlooked, in my opinion. Most movies and a lot of newer games these days are just singular, artsy, and open-sounding words. You guys seen the movies Villain, Inheritance, Frozen 2, and Greed, and honestly, at first glance, Mother is on a similar level to that. Not that those names I just mentioned don't have any meaning to their names. I mean, honestly, I haven't seen any of them as of the time writing this. But somehow, the simple name of Mother, I find fits in everything I love about this series, and what I feel it represents, into one single word.
Mother!
That's it. Just Mother. There's nothing really too special about it. You know, it's so simple that some people might even say it's too simple. However, I find that charming in a way. Imagine being in a game store in 1989 down in the old country of Japan. You'd hop by the NES section and see games like Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse, maybe an older release like Super Mario Bros. I can't say Super Mario without laughing, sorry. Games that have these iconic and marketable titles and this exciting, dynamic box art. Sandwiched between those two, though, lies one game. Mother. It sits there with this red, white, and gold box art with a simple name, setting itself apart from the other games. In a similar way to how many young gamers were shown Metal Gear Solid with its US releases box art, I'm sure many saw this Mother game and were drawn to it with how much it stood out. It's almost like the game was telling you, hey, I know these other games look cool, but I'm a bit more unique. Why not give me a shot? Unlike the other games that are on the shelf, Mother's not trying to mash up some words to put together an idea. It's just Mother, and whatever idea you have of what a mother is. Mother, as a word, is most likely going to have some emotional punch no matter what your history with it is. Whether you never met your mother, haven't had the best history with your mother, or love your mother more than anyone else. As a name for an RPG, that's very different from something like Dragon Quest. While Dragon Quest is more epic, Mother, on the other hand, fits a series that was marketed as strange, funny, and heartrending. That's just the power words have, and I feel like that was intentional on the creator's part. Anyway, I think that's a bit too much for this early on, so let's focus on another aspect. Femininity. Itoi has stated that he finds the name especially fitting as he considers the series to be more feminine compared to other RPGs. I'll be honest, when I first heard that, I was pretty confused as to what that meant. I guess cultural differences are a part of it, but here's to what I take that as. Mother is, in a way, on a smaller, more emotional and personal scale compared to other RPGs at the time. Let's, once again, take a look at Dragon Quest. The originally specific. Dragon Quest is an epic RPG where you fight monsters, some cute, some disgusting, with over-the-top medieval weaponry on your buff protagonist. You'll be stopping kidnappings, ending the usage of dark magic, and all to stop the evil doings of the big dark evil man literally named King Dragon. Now let's compare this to Mother. Instead of the usual villain from the time, Gygu, Gygus, Gigas, Geek, whatever you want to call him, is a tragic villain with a backstory. And no spoilers to the 1989 game here, but he is directly related to the protagonist. The first Dragon Quest game didn't even have party members, so let's move on to Dragon Quest II. In Dragon Quest II, the party members don't even have canon names. They just have titles and a random preset one that you can change. They talk when you first meet them and at certain points in the story, but other than that, there's not much else. In contrast, Ninten gets his first real traveling companion by showing kindness to a bullied kid when no one else would give it to him. While Lloyd may not have much actual dialogue, similar to Dragon Quest II, he gets a subtle arc and is very obviously not the hero type as shown in in-game and out-of-game media. Instead of collecting MacGuffins to defeat the godly villain like in a lot of RPGs, you're instead doing the favor of a magical woman you barely know to also gather MacGuffins. Any knowledge that this will be helpful to defeat the final boss at this point in the story is completely unknown. You may be saving the world at the end of the day in both, but the way that objective is reached is very different in both games. Now this may sound more like some praise as to why I love this strange little NES game so gosh darn much more than why explaining the name matters, but my point still stands that the journey of Mother is a more personal and emotional one compared to other games at the time, so I understand why the word to wrap all this together is feminine of all things. You know, looking at all that, it really surprises me how I haven't mentioned the actual plot significance of literal mothers in the series yet. So I might as well do that, right? There's, of course, Maria, who is part of the main plotline that kickstarted the entire series back in Mother 1, which makes up for an intense mom not really being that much of a plot-important character. I will say though, Mother 2 probably has this aspect of the name at its least importance, but it is important to remember the theme of family in Mother 2. As I'm sure every single analysis on YouTube has pointed out, Ness's family is used for mechanics in the game, and his mom is no less important, as she is the cure to the ever so thematically significant, though occasionally annoying homesickness status. As for Mother 3, well, I'm sure anyone who's played the game or knows even a little bit about it, due to how much the fans who have only played Mother 3 love to spoil it, know why a mother is so important to that game's story. Oh, also, the most important mother of all, Mother Earth! Get it? It's a pun. It's also a very small aspect of the name, so it kind of annoys me to see some people act like it's the only reason the series is called Mother. Come on, guys. Give the name a little bit more credit than that, at least, even if you're not a fan of it. Nonetheless, it's a little nifty connection, I guess. Another thing I want to mention is...
But Radshyguy, your point is entirely invalid because Itoy, creator of the Earthbound franchise, said the series is named after a John Lennon song. Everything you've said is worthless now. It's time to go home, you friggin' egg beater.
Oh, yeah, I guess I should bring that up as well. Stayed seated, YouTube commenter, as it is now the moment you've all been waiting for. Yes, the name Mother also comes from the John Lennon song of the same name. You got me. I bet you're really proud of that limited knowledge you got from the first 30 seconds of a Did You Know gaming video. Make sure to send you a badge in the mail. The song actually came from Lennon's experience growing up without a father, which Itoy related to as his father was gone for most of his young life. This is likely part of the reason Ness and Ninten's fathers, while mostly seeming well-meaning, stay behind the phone. I would even say that this aspect fits for the name considering Mother's heavy referencing to Western pop culture. Whether it be Beatles references or distorted sampling of the Star-Spangled Banner, it's a notable aspect of the series. It is worth noting, though, that there is another reason for the dads being behind the phone. Now, this was originally all I had for the name Mother, but there was this feeling inside of me. I remember seeing a long time ago a comment about how Mother was made for Itoy's daughter, but I couldn't find anything on it. Then, while I was researching this video, before I took my half-a-month break to play Persona 5 Royal and got no work done, I found it. This right here is the golden banana of this video essay. This article, from simply titled Shigesato Itoi Discusses Mother 4, gave me not only the info I needed, but a lot of interesting tidbits. Like how they thought the oxygen machine part of Mother 3 was pretty uninteresting, so they added in the merman kissing you, or some insight into Itoi's writing and him testing the emotions given from it with others. Just a lot of interesting stuff, and I really recommend you give it a read. There is one section, though, that I find is quite relevant to the topic at hand. Itoi is asked by Iwata why the games have left such a strong impact on people. Soon after, Iwata says, "But there are tons of people out there who pour their all into creating games. Not everyone does, but there are plenty of people who are serious about their own games. So what is it about your games that give them this special profoundness, this special staying power?" I think one major factor is that they're unusual games that portray that wistfulness you mentioned earlier, but I feel like that isn't enough to explain it. In fact, we could probably talk forever analyzing what gives the Mother games their charm. Right after, Itoi responded, "What's quietly flowing beneath the surface is a child. My daughter never did play through the games in the end, but they were clearly a letter to her. They were a letter to my own daughter, who I couldn't see for a while due to divorce issues." Right after, Itoi confirms that the fathers are connected to Ness and Nintendo from phones because they're simply watching their kids from afar. Later, Itoi mentions how a parent watching from a distance, serving as a caregiver and not a ton else, can be the ideal image of a parent from him. This makes sense considering how the mothers in Mother 1 and 2 would just let their kids go on these grand journeys without really questioning them. The point is then followed by him stating he had a reason to make the Mother series, but now his kid is all grown up. So, if you look at it in the right way, Itoi was the father of his daughter, and the stepmother on his end was Mother. Wow. Honestly, this is one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard about a video game's development. Even if Itoi's daughter did never play the Mother games, it's still such a beautiful intent, and people across the world of all ages got to experience this letter. Kids, grown-ups, and even young women. But that got a bit heavy, so I'm gonna make fun of the name Earthbound now.
Earthbound.
Earthbound means alien sci-fi game. Video over, bye! Okay. Well, I could easily write off the name as bad and then end the video, because honestly, at least to me, nothing can ever compare to Mother as a name for the series. I'll at least try. To put the earlier sentence in a less mocking way, the name Earthbound most likely derives as a pretty cheesy but fitting name for a story of an alien invasion. While this is simple, it works. I do have some issues with this though. First of all, Mother 3 isn't really about aliens. Obviously they wouldn't have known this in the 90s, but it's still worth noting. I also think it downplays a lot of the fantasy elements of the series. Magic ant, mysterious species, living in hidden villages, talking monkeys, etc. Honestly, as somewhat of a counterpoint to that though, someone recently pointed out to me that in a way the name sounds a bit mystical, as if you're trying to reach for beautiful stars in the sky, but you can't as you're simply earthbound. I believe the name Mother carries the value as well, with how strange of a name it is, but it is certainly a strong positive that surprised me when I heard it. Overall, the name certainly works, it just doesn't really capture much of the game in my opinion, and it doesn't really stand out in comparison to something like Castlevania 3's Dracula's Curse or Super Mario Bros. Like Mother does, conforming it to a more video gamey name. Now this did likely make it easier to market overseas at the time. I don't really think marketability makes a good name. If we based everything on if it was a good corporate decision for sales, the Dreamcast and Wii U would be the worst consoles of all time, and the localized box art for Metal Gear Solid 4 and God Hand would be better than the actual box art. Oh wait, I almost forgot. There's also the fact that the name means down to earth, which is really clever. Or would be if I actually believed it was intentional, which I don't, considering Spacebound, 2 words, was also trademarked in 1990 by Nintendo. Listen, I don't care if you like viewing the name like this, it sure is a heck of a lot more interesting, but I very, very much doubt it was intentional. Though, to be fair, isn't the point of art less what people put into it, and more of what people get out of it? Maybe that's the case, and who knows if some of my points for Mother as a name weren't all intentional either, but just don't try to tell me it was intentional like so many people have before. Yeah, that's about all I have to say. My hatred isn't really hatred and more like an exaggerated disagreement. As I don't hate the name, I just find it disappointing and underwhelming compared to the Japanese title. Maybe I'm just not looking into it deep enough, but I can only manage to write like 2 paragraphs here while I was able to write pages about Mother as a name. I think if anything, that just shows why I prefer the name Mother. So yeah, the name Earthbound sucks. I'm gonna start censoring it since I've made my point now. It just doesn't compare to Mother at all. A name that I still think about every once in a while. It makes me go, gosh. That's one of the most clever names I've ever heard for a piece of media in my life. But I know what you're thinking. Why did I make this video? There's a much simpler answer to that than you may expect. As I should have stated before, I've kept the spam of asterisk Mother on a smaller scale to not be as obnoxious, but I still do it because me and probably 2 other people on the planet find it funny. But then, when they tell me that it doesn't matter or, but Earthbound is the localized name, I will send this video. They will then not watch it, because why would they bother watching a YouTube video for a minor Twitter argument, meaning I instantly win the Awesome Swaggers Twitter debate. So this video right here is my insta-win button. Overall though, any one of us can call any series whatever name we want. You want to call Donkey Kong Country Super Donkey Kong or Mega Man Rockman? Sure, go right ahead. I will judge you about it silently or out loud, but I'm not going to stop you. You have just as much right to do that as much as I do to spam asterisk Mother in replies. Now, I must thank you, dear viewer, for watching my epic wit against the Twitter reply fella. If you enjoyed this video, please slap that mother frickin' comment button and tell me it wasn't good to be an awesome trolling frag movie montage non-parody moment. That's all for this video, and I hope you have a great day.